yummy treats. And I'm going to talk about the whale. And James is going to try to spill all the food. I'm going to talk about Agatha Christie's Poirot Series 13, and I'm talking about the second and third discs. So I didn't watch that one because I've already watched it. So I watched The Labors of Hercules and Poirot's Last Case. And surprisingly, the whale got top of the stack, and I guess I really shouldn't have been that surprised. But I love Poirot, so that's why I was surprised.
This particular version of Poirot.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed every Agatha Christie movie I've ever seen. I think you're a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to your criticism. Okay, it's something's improbable. Okay, I still enjoy it. Anyway.
Well, in any case,
he's almost handsome, even with a fat face.
Yeah. At first, when I saw Brendan Fraser in this, like even just on the cover, I was like, wow, did he ever let himself go? Because, I mean, we've been watching him over the years and going, oh, he's going to have to get on top of that. And it's easy to, when you age, it's harder to keep the weight off. It's certainly a lot easier to put it on. And I mean, your metabolism changes,
slows down, yeah.
And you got to try to deal with that, right? I mean, you have been watching me. I have been letting you watch me and watch us hiking, and I still have a bit of a belly. I haven't lost it, and I'm eating stuff like this, right? And we're not eating them very much, and I was trying to slice the tiramisu cake slices so thin and only let us have one little tiny slice a day, and make sure we were eating it with real food, you know, fresh fruit and stuff like that. And still, I mean, we're putting on probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating at all when I say maybe 60,000 steps a week each. Like, and that's, a lot of that's vertical. A lot of that, you know, we're going to the mountains to put those steps on. And still, I'm a little bit bigger than maybe I should be, right? And so what am I going to do? Am I going to have to cut that out completely? Maybe so, right?
Well, we're still increasing our footage.
We're still working on it. We'll see. And I'll let you see how we're doing at it. You know, you can decide for yourself how many steps you think you might need to take if you're going to eat these sort of treats, you know. And I mean, there were some parts where this man, he became even more depressed. You could see when he was more stressed out, and his usual pizzas that came in the evening.
Plural pizzas.
Yeah, that he ate. He started, like, he put mayonnaise in between, so he was doing like a pizza sandwich sort of thing with some mayonnaise.
And what size of the pizzas were you saying?
They were so big.
Were you saying they were the extra large?
Yeah.
So he'd take one, put a mayonnaise on it,
yeah.
and then he'd slap the other one down on it.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
You were describing.
And then he was like, so he was going into the fridge for all sorts of things, and like potato chip sandwich. I've known people who do the potato chip sandwiches things.
Oh, okay.
And
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's probably pretty good. But you know what? Lettuce or spinach in a sandwich. That gives you a crunch. And
cucumbers.
Sure.
They're kind of crunchy too.
Come on. Anyway, so we'll see. And you can come hiking with us. You can see firsthand. You don't have to watch us what we're eating and how many steps we're doing at so-and-so at such and such hikes or whatever. And I mean, that's not all the walking we do, because I walk pretty much everywhere in town except for when we go to get food, then James gives me a ride. But
so you walk to the library. That's a substantial walk.
Yeah.
You'll walk to pharmacy.
Whatever. So anyway, but in any case, I'm hoping that they use some sort of computer generated images or whatever to monkey with Brendan Fraser's physique for this, or it makes me depressed just thinking of the possibility that
he's a handsome guy.
He's so handsome, and he seems like such a wonderful person.
Who knows? But he sure seems that way.
Yeah. I don't think the world would be better off without him. So anyway, I don't know how he's doing, and I hope he's doing well. But yeah, it's a beautiful story. I didn't even really care to watch it that much, and once I put it on, I was like, wow. For the first while, he's really wanting to read an essay, and somebody who's wanting to get him interested in having himself saved by Jesus. So he's not Mormon, but he's somebody who comes to the door to. Anyway, so he manages to help the guy out briefly, because this Brendan Fraser's, the character he plays, he has some very serious health problems. I mean, more than you can just see. And he knows it too. He knows he's dying, but he doesn't want to go to the doctor. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be saved in any way. Not in this world. Not by anyone. And anyway. Yeah, the essay that the young man reads to him, and he has the young man read to him, it sounds good, and you're listening to it, and you're like, yeah, okay. And since the character, he's an English teacher, you think, okay, well, this must have been from somebody in his class or whatever.
Brendan Fraser's.
Yeah.
I thought he was English. Yeah. Like at university or something?
Sure, he does internet courses, and he just keeps the camera off so that nobody sees what he looks like, because he doesn't want to be judged by what he looks like, right? By how he looks. And anyway, so it's definitely worth watching. I'm not going to give any more away about this movie. It's incredible. So just watch it. The Labors of Hercules. That one was a good one. It was not what I expected it would be. And boy, Agatha Christie must have been working overtime trying to weave that story together. It worked out well. And Poirot's last case, that one's a different twist too. You don't know. I'm not going to tell you what happens. But in these two, honestly, you have to watch these two, because in the Labors of Hercules, I mean, not only Agatha Christie must have worked hard, but she worked hard to confuse things just enough that you believe that Poirot actually managed to get confused by things, and you see a bit of his human side. He's not just an analytical genius who solves mysteries. No, you see him as a human being who has preconceived notions of who people are or whatever, and he might make mistakes. That might cause him to make mistakes. So you see that, right? And in Poirot's last case, you see another way that Poirot is just human. And I can't give away how that mystery unfolds. And you know how it unfolds, right?
It's been a long time. I forgot.
Okay, well, there you go. So it's definitely worth watching. So now, James, I don't know what you were going to talk about.
I don't know. Not much to talk about. I've kind of been starting a bunch of different books and not finishing
How's
them.
the soup that way? Is it okay?
Pretty good.
All I did was put eggplant and potatoes in the food process, like they were baked. I put them in the food processor to munch them up all fine. And I boiled some water with we got a mixture, spice mixture that's crock pot beef stew seasoning. And so I stuck that in there.
But there's no meat in there, right?
No, it says natural flavor.
If you're a meat eater, you might like it because
I don't think there's any meat in there.
No, it tastes almost like there's meat in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there may very well be, but I didn't see any on the package. I saw natural flavor, which I'm like, who knows what that is.
Exactly
But,
right. So it's more I think it's eggplant in there or something like that.
Oh yeah, well it's because I grilled them, so they're baked. They have that smoky baked flavor.
Oh,
So yeah. Is it salty enough and stuff?
oh, it's great.
Okay, good. Anyway, so what were you going to talk about?
I don't have much to talk about. I mean, I could talk about those.
I did miss some of your
comments.
listeners. I don't know how I managed that.
Okay.
I'll do it.
Anyway, yeah, it was this morning. So.
Yeah.
I was wanting to talk about, not necessarily now, but this one guy who was reading Karl Marx. Both of them they're 19 years old. They hadn't started university yet. They were getting ready for it. From Germany. I hadn't realized until afterwards. I knew they were from Potsdam. I think Potsdam was in East Germany, back when East Germany existed. The Democratic Republic of Germany, so-called Democratic, so-called Republic. You commies out there, don't go around calling about your little places. I'm not talking to these 19-year-olds. I'm talking about. I don't think the one was too interesting. More interesting Pink Floyd, better taste. I like both of them, but you're young. You should be reading lots of different things up until you get to 25, and maybe you'll start seeing the light. But you should really be reading stuff until you're 105. You love that much. And you're trying to register things and come to conclusion. So the one who was reading Karl Marx, he was very enthused about the idea of from each according to his need, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And when you're 19, you can kind of believe in that, but eventually you realize that people almost have endless needs, or what they see as needs. You can see it in hockey, any sort of sport thing. There'll be all sorts of people who'll be cheating. Dave the Hammer Schultz, classic example. He spends much of his very much ghostwritten autobiography complaining about refereeing. But there's a point, maybe 2/3 of the way through the book, he says, looking at it objectively, I gotta admit that we were taking advantage of referees, we were taking advantage of the rules, we were cheating, and stuff like that. Then he goes back to complaining about the referees. They basically mugged their way to 2 Stanley Cups in a row. That's the Philadelphia Flyers. Weird thing is, he was a former Mennonite. He was raised, I guess, as Mennonite. I don't know how observant or observing. For a while there, he held the record for most penalty minutes in one season. Dave the Hammer Schultz. One of my favorite moments is watching Larry Robinson of the Montreal Canadiens, who was quite a Pacific guy, but bigger than David Hammer Schultz. And apparently a better fighter. David the Hammer Schultz was good at picking on people who were smaller than him. Eventually, he ran into someone who was bigger, better fighter. Better on his feet, too, on skates. Now, don't start fighting if you don't know how to skate. In hockey, you got to stay off. You can't blow a wheel, as they say. So what happened is the Flyers had this practice. They were called the Broad Street Bullies. And they had this practice of picking on smaller players. It wasn't just a big player and a smaller player. They'd kind of like gang up on smaller players. They're such cowards. So they'd come off the bench and surround smaller players and start mugging them. And so Montreal had this is in the mid-70s, had quite a few smaller players. Doug Jarvis. I don't know if they had Pierre Mondu quite at that point. Doug Riseborough could kind of handle himself, even though he was small. Réjean Houle, I think, was back with the Canadiens at that point in time. He jumped over to the WHA for a while. And Larry Robinson was in the middle of a game. He had to go to, I think it was for repairs, maybe to get stitches or something like that. So he's off the ice, wasn't even on the bench. And the Philadelphia Flyers are already in fear of him. Decided they were going to start mugging. So they had it looks like a bench clearing brawl. They all came off the bench, except maybe their coach, maybe the replacement goaltender. He probably came up too. Maybe the coach did too, Fred Sherrill. And Larry Robinson, the news got back to him. He comes back on the ice, and he goes for the main instigator. That's what they say with a mob. You know, if you want to stop a mob rule, you try to identify who's stirring them up the mob, and then you take on that person, and if you can, take them out. So what did Larry Robinson do? He started dancing, tangoing. The tango didn't last long, because it took about, I think it was one blow, but maybe two blows, and the next thing you know, Dave the Hammer Schultz is getting hammered. It's one of the most liberating moments to ever see a bully like that get his comeuppance. So he's basically looks as though he's at confession, you know, confessing to a priest or something like that. And of course, that's when all the rest of the Flyers jump in and try to keep Robinson from. Well, Robinson wouldn't have killed Hammer Schultz, but he would have. Well, I don't think he would have hit him a little more once he was down with his knees on the ice and stuff like that, because you hit someone, they're on their skates, they can kind of slide away from you, but especially if you're hitting down on someone, you could really do some damage. And Larry Robinson wasn't about that. Anyway, Dave the Hammer Schultz, just endless needs, you know, like, I need to win the Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter the cost, you know, like, this other team deserves it more. They work harder, they work smarter. They've got way more talent and stuff like that, but I'm going to cheat my way to the Stanley Cup. You know? That's just the way things are in real life. So Marx did he know much about reality? No, he's a philosopher. He was a philosopher. And he didn't really know how to get on in real life. He would have starved to death. I think some of his kids died from borderline. It wouldn't be so much starvation, but diseases caused by not really malnutrition. I think his wife died younger than she should have. She was an aristocrat. I think her last name was von Westphalen, something like Westphalen. Jenny or Jenny, first name. He's an awful person, and you know, like in reality, once you got kids, you got to take care of them. You can't go around sitting in the British Museum and depending on the kindness of strange friends, not so much strangers. We're talking about Engels, who apparently was a flashy dresser, you know, at the expense of the people who were being exploited at his father's factories. Engels, I guess, kind of supervised somewhere another a factory or two owned by his father, a German guy in I think it was Manchester, someplace in England. No, people have these endless needs, and there has to be some way that we make sure that, like another thing.
Well,
problem
and you
that
look
they've
at Marx
quoted.
himself. I mean, he was a parent, and he certainly had the ability to do things to take care of the children
And he
fathered,
didn't.
and he did.
He was a
So,
parasite.
yeah.
Not like he talks. I probably uses the term parasite to apply to capitalists, right? Right? He called them expropriators, right? So, but he was a parasite too. He was living off what workers did for Engels and stuff like that for his Engels and his dad.
And not
I don't
taking
know if
care
he
of his
ever
family.
not taking care of his family, his wife or his kids, and he was a scumbag. He didn't know. He didn't really lead a real life. It's just ivory tower existence. Even more ivory tower than a professor, because a professor kind of has to do lectures. He didn't have to do lectures. All he did is sit in the British Museum, taking down notes, all that sort of stuff. I like to think I've been way more critically creative than him, and I actually worked a real job. Pauline has seen me working one of those real jobs, and has seen me going off to work for another one of those real jobs, like cleaning out people's toilets. Kind of has to get done. The working in what was called Parks Construction, it's kind of landscaping. You know, people don't really need lawns and so on and so forth. But I did janitorial for many, many years, way more than a decade, probably close to 2 decades, janitorial. So people have these endless needs, and you see, the other thing is, as I was going to mention, abilities. Like, how many of your abilities are innate, that you were actually born with? I can't think of any for me. Like I ended up being a pretty darn good runner, long, middle, and runner and sprinter. How much time? 5?
Yeah.
And but I had to work at it. I ended up being a pretty darn good soccer player, but when I started playing, the ball wasn't my friend. It wanted to run away from me. Long distance away from me. It took many, many, many repetitions. I don't think I put the 10,000 hours you theoretically need to be a chess grandmaster, but I put in, I think I was calculating it might be a quarter of that.
Well, and I should mention that too about this movie. Like, Brendan Fraser, his character is constantly apologizing, sorry to the people around him. And you feel bad for him. And you think, gosh, poor guy, always blaming himself, and apologizing. But at one point, he's determined he's going to give his daughter, who he abandoned when she was 8 years old, and she's pretty upset about that. He wants to give her he saved over $100,000. He wants to give it all to her. And there's been, like, his ex-boyfriend's sister she's a nurse, and she's been the one who's been caring for him. And at one point, she's told that he has this money, and she didn't believe it, and she asked for confirmation from him, and she's upset because she's like, what, you mean, like, you had all this money when my vehicle broke down and I was packing your groceries here in the snow, and you had all that, so she's upset about it, and rightfully so. Can you imagine how many groceries she would have been packing for him in the snow there to help care for him? And that's just it, is as much
She
as
was helping him save money, giving him charity.
she's caring for him, and she loves him, very much. Like there's, he's really not. Some things happened that made him slide over the edge, that slippery slope, and he starts gaining weight, and then it snowballs, right? It's once you really start, and it can get out of control really fast. And but he had people that would have that loved him still, and that wanted to be a part of his life, would want to help him all the way along. So really, he should be sorry. He should be sorry. And as much as I feel a little funny saying that, but you gotta. He had the ability to control things, and to look at things and say, "Oh well, it's not his fault." No, it was. So, and really, it's what he decided to do was it's slow motion suicide, and that's a lot of people do it. A lot of people, they must know that they're doing it while they're doing it. So, I mean, you can look at a number of different things that people do that it's slow motion suicide. You could say smoking cigarettes or something. Slow motion suicide.
Sometimes there's Russian roulette suicide. Like today on the road when I was going to get my blood test.
There are just simple things like that. There could be people who speed on a regular basis. Well, that's not only slow motion suicide. That's potential homicide. It's Russian roulette. You don't know when you're going to go.
So I'll give you an example. I was at a light, 4 lanes, and there was a turn signal. I see a person doing a question mark turn in front of me. And I'm going, why are they going so wide? They were just this close to traffic going by them. Oh, they pulled a U-E at a traffic light.
Oh, wow.
They had the advance signal, but...
I've been seeing that a lot in recent years here in Lethbridge, and I don't know why that is. I mean, we've had
Russian roulette suicide.
An increase in population recently. We went to the west side yesterday, and it's way huge. Every time I go there, it's huger, and there's so much new development, But I don't know. I don't know what's causing it, but it's incredible. I mean, it used to be you'd expect to see some bad driving by the Hutterites. They're from the country. They're not really. They don't drive much in the city. You expect that they're not going to do it very well, right? And they didn't.
Ordinarily, they're under the limit.
That's true. They're not speeders. We haven't seen them just booting around and pulling U-turns in the middle of intersections.
Nowadays, I see people from away,
yeah,
doing all sorts of stuff, and you can argue. Like we have all sorts of people who are